First Nations TV, your news first.
Remains of the first British settlement in the Northern Territory on Melville Island, named Fort Dundas, has recently been listed as a heritage site. In 1824, approximately 100 men, including soldiers, marines and convicts, began constructing a fortification to turn it into a trading port and a defensive position against other foreign colonial powers. In remembrance of the events that occurred 200 years ago at Punata, the Tiwi name for the peninsula which Fort Dundas was built upon, a ceremony was held by the Tiwi Land Council.
The second dance was represents, the farewell dance to the British that had left here because of resistance, Tiwi resistance from traditional owners. Today, obviously, it's the 200 years celebration of the settlement of Fort Dundas and Punata in Tiwi, but it's also the removal of the British that came here from the Munupi, traditional owners of this land. In history, it's always written from one perspective. That's why it's always good to have a Tiwi perspective. It was handed down for centuries, and I still remember it, and a lot of us do. So it's so important to educate people nationally and internationally. There was a resistance from traditional owners. We showed their strength to protect their land. So they did it for the right reason.
It was heritage listed this year in July to celebrate this site, and the heritage listing recognises both the significance as the first settlement in the north coast of Australia in 1824, but also recognises the local Munupi people's pushback on colonial settlements in the Northern Territory, and this was the first of 4 settlements for which the peoples of the Northern Territory pushed back on British colonialism.
I think it's important to recognise the historical context of the founding of Fort Dundas. The original expedition was led by a Royal Navy leader, Captain Bremer. He was the officer who established the colony here, the first colony in the Northern Territory. But also the Tiwi people's perspective. In all respects, they were getting an invading force into their land. They've got an unbroken, continuous ownership of this land, and it remains that way today. So it's really important to hear their story and their perspective on that, and like I said, learn from the past.
Fort Dundas's Commandant Major, John Campbell, wrote he had captured and imprisoned a Tiwi man when he intercepted a group going to attack some men sawing timber. It's believed that he was chained in a well, but he escaped within 2 weeks, and traditional owners say this escalated the conflict between both parties. Attacks from the Tiwi people on the fort became regular, and 2 men were killed by spears. The fort was abandoned a year after this occurred.
My ancestor, Tambo, that was the first prisoner captured here, the first prisoner. History that he came across through ceremony. All right, we all Tiwi people, we come together when there's a passing and when there's a big farewell and there's a ceremony, we do that. As he was come past here, there was here these people. On the way back, he came from somewhere else, come past, he got captured here. And he was put down here somewhere. My father told me that when he got captured, he ended up going back home. He swam back from me. When he broke that chain from here, he swam back across. He still had his chain attached to him. And then he passed the message to the Bathurst Island people, clan all over, and Bathurst said, there's somebody over there. We don't know where they come from. They're not our people.
34 settlers died on the island, either from illness or malnutrition, accidents or Tiwi spears. Fort Dundas was abandoned in 1828, with the last of the settlers leaving in 1829.
First Nations TV, your news first.